3 days later, I got a call from his wife, Mary, that he had passed away. And that really shocked me because I knew Lee was ill, but not that ill. Lee Gossett, Bob Dayton, and myself were to have a reunion in Redmond, Oregon this June. We always used to have summer reunions, usually in the Big Hole, west of Jackson, Montana, and there'd be a group of 6 to 8 of us, pilots and former smoke jumpers, that would get together for 6, 7 days, and we would car camp at one of the Forest Service campgrounds, and then take day hikes to the nearby lakes to fish, with Ridge Lake being one of the closest lakes. And Lee loved that lake. Some days, some years it would be hot, other years cold. But that's where I came up with the idea to drop his ashes over Ridge Lake. Yeah, my name is Fred Rohrbach, a former Missoula smoke jumper. I decided that we had to have a smoke jumper funeral. And we held our reunion in a way in the sky, because we dropped Lee's ashes over Ridge Lake June 14th, which I think is Flag Day, and drop his ashes out of Miss Montana. And for that, I thank the Museum of Mountain Flying, especially Eric Combrack and Pat Collins, for giving me permission to use Miss Montana, also known as 320.
Through these fields of destruction, baptisms of fire, I've witnessed your suffering as the battle reached high. And though it was so bad, in the fear and alarm, you did not desert me, my brothers in arms.
The whole idea started with Lee. That was the initial intent. But then word got out in the smoke jumper community that we were going to drop Lee's ashes out of Miss Montana. So I was approached by former jumpers if I could drop so-and-so's ashes, etc. Naturally, I accepted. My only regret is that I couldn't bring more ashes of former smoke jumpers along.
I asked Fred if I could, a friend of mine had passed away and he was a jumper out of Boise, if we could drop his ashes as well. He was also in the military, and his name was Mark Moats, and it was a great thing to be able to drop his ashes. And there were several other guys that were mentors of mine, Bernie Hildy, and also Roy Williams, who were also great mentors of me as I was a young 20-year-old firefighter.
Eddie wanted Mark Moats dropped. Roger Savage wanted his stepson dropped. And his stepson was a former wildland firefighter, not a smoke jumper. And he was the only one of the 5 whose ashes we dropped that wasn't a jumper. So this was his first jump and his last jump. We made him an honorary smoke jumper.
And then Mad Dog gave us those ashes.
Then the last ashes that we got, Bob and I were headed down to Pocatello, Idaho to retrace the Oregon Trail from Idaho into western Nebraska. And I stopped by to see Steve Mad Dog Williams in North Fork, Idaho. And before I left, he gave me a small bottle. And he said, "Could you drop Bernie Hildy's ashes?" And it was a little brown bottle. I said, "Sure." But I really want to thank Eddie Ward, because he came up with a great idea of putting the ashes in the American flag. And Eddie put the flag in a D bag, and that's how we dropped them out.
That's a deployment bag that we use to deploy the parachute outside the door of the aircraft safely. And what we did is we took the American flag and tied it to the deployment bag, and then we put each person's ashes in a different spot on the bag in the flag as we rolled it up, and put it inside the D bag. And then Kurt Rohrbach, Fred's son, who is the base manager over at the jump base, was the one that threw it out the door and deployed the ashes all over Ridge Lake. So it just made a real smooth and beautiful scene for honoring all of those military smoke jumpers that we dropped that day.
Yeah, I think the big memory was this is my last trip with Lee. This was for Lee, and we were fortunate to have other whose ashes were dropped. And the memory of that trip, not only with Lee, but was also the landscape. And it was really quite inspiring to fly over that landscape. I can't recall how long the trip was before we hit the jump spot, but the landscape was awesome. The Big Hole is just a gorgeous landscape. The finale of this event with Lee's ashes and the others is that we landed this Doug in Salmon, Idaho, and were picked up by a stretch limo, and that was able to carry
A Hummer.
It was a Hummer, and I'm not sure how many we had in the plane altogether, but
14.
We had 14 in that plane, and all piled into that stretched Hummer limo, and went downtown Salmon and had a great dinner, great lunch.
There's so many different worlds, so many different songs, and we have just one world, but we live in different worlds.
Yeah, for me, the biggest takeaway from that day was Bob, Lee, and I had our reunion in the sky in June, like we had planned, but it wasn't in Redmond, Oregon. It was over a place. We've held many reunions in the past, and what a better way to part with a friend, his last jump.